I mean, the ones that we've done, even though we're not in front of the camera, behind the camera, it's still been like, that was cool. Like, I'm super excited. I'm super stoked up.
And it's nerve wracking.
Yeah.
It is. That's part of that rush.
Everybody gets excited too, because it's like, they know it's live. Whatever is about to happen is going to happen. And so,
yeah.
Grab some coffee, a Mountain Dew, maybe both. A storm is brewing. The Brainstorm. Welcome to the Brainstorm with Matt and Mike.
Hey, welcome to the Brainstorm with Matt and Mike. Mike is under the weather today. Actually, all of us are under the weather. You see what I did there, Tom? You like that?
I don't get it. Yeah. Explain it to
me. Anyway, Mike's out today, so I got two folks from our team, two great team members. We have Haley Bryant. She's a client manager with us. Thanks for joining me today, Haley.
Absolutely. Excited to be here.
Awesome. And I got Tom Bear, who's been on our show before. He manages all of our video and photography, and a bunch of other things. Been with us a long time. Tom, thanks for joining me today.
Yep. Good to be here.
So today's show is about virtual events, which is awesome. You've seen a lot of them over the past 12 months, especially since COVID has hit. But even before that, there were some virtual events. It's just virtual events seem to have changed a lot. And Haley has been working a lot with virtual events recently, or when I say recently, over the last 12 months or so, when COVID hit and a lot of people had to pivot to virtual events. But what I really want to do is just kind of pick your brain about virtual events, guys, and allow our viewers and our listeners to see if virtual events might be good for their business or their organization or their nonprofit. And I really want to just kind of start where kind of the advantages and disadvantages of virtual events versus events, almost like a comparison. And I know that I've been to a ton of events over the years, over the last, say, 30 years or so. Has been to a lot of conferences and trade shows and community events and chamber events and then galas, which that's what we see a lot of virtual events coming from, I guess, stemming from as galas. So, tell me, Tom, because I know that you've been with me on some events, and of course you've been to a lot of events yourself. Give me some comparisons between a live event and a virtual event.
Well, I mean, if we go back to like even some of the conferences we've been to, well before COVID, and it's the whole busyness of being there and in person and a huge crowd, and it's great. It's great to.
There is some excitement. You get a little momentum going.
Yeah,
it seems pretty
camaraderie with other people in your industry, and then also they get the guest speakers in, which is really cool because you get to kind of meet some celebrities in the industry and even outside the industry that are just there to kind of be like those speakers, those special speakers, which is really cool. And then with COVID, of course, everybody moving towards the virtual event, it's been, again, different, but you're still getting that opportunity, but it's just virtually. So you're seeing the same type of people, but they're just in video versus.
Yeah. And I guess it's kind of a different format, right, Tom? It seems like to me, you have to cut out the fluff.
Absolutely. Because you think about it, what we had to do is take what normally would be a couple hours for a dinner and the show down to like 45 minutes to an hour.
Because you're not going to have dinner on a virtual event.
Right. I mean, and people lose their trains of thought. They got distractions in, being at home and whatever's going on. So, we've had to condense it right down to what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And Haley, I know that you've been heavily involved in the planning and the content and all that type of stuff of the virtual events. Think back to some live events that you've gone to in the past and just give me a couple of comparisons between, we were just talking about cutting out the fluff, if you will, right? And so wouldn't you say that you really kind of have to dive right into and allow maybe the agenda to be set so people understand when to tune in and when not to tune in, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically we have to meet with our clients months in advance to start planning our virtual events. And we kind of create a rundown and get clients' approval. And we really just have to dive into scripting, get really detailed with the timing and all of that, and just make sure that everything is getting done in an efficient amount of time, but also getting our point across, getting our goals for the events across.
Right. No doubt. And so that's certainly different from a live event, because in live events, you have to have all this build up kind of, this fluff. You have, hallway snacks and, you know what I mean? You have drinks over on the left and people kind of get to flow in, and it's really ebb and flow in a live event scenario, but you still kind of want people to be in this area at this time. And whereas a virtual event, you just kind of set the agenda, and then the scripting, like you were talking about, the planning really comes into play. So when it comes to a virtual event, if you will, how do people make a decision like that? I mean, you've been talking to people like nonprofits as an example, right? We've probably, done a ton of them over the last 12 months. How does a nonprofit make that decision, or did COVID make it for them? Haley, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, COVID definitely had a big play in it in the last year. Obviously, COVID hit a little over a year ago now, and we were in the process of planning some in-person events for our nonprofit clients. And when COVID hit, we had to take a turn because we weren't allowing in-person events. So we had to quickly turn it into a virtual event. It was a lot of upfront work for us as far as planning and scheduling and getting the event just how it needed to be.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Well, if you think about it too, is when we were in that process, it was kind of an unknown because we didn't know how people were going to respond to it. And but at the same time, with everybody going to Zoom meetings and virtual schooling already, it's almost like it jump-started it for us. Like people
got used to being in front of a computer screen.
Right. And it was like, oh, there's this virtual event. Well, I'm kind of used to that right now, even though we are kind of jumped right into it. So it kind of helped.
Yeah, because at one point the three of us were quarantined, not from having COVID, but just for everybody working at home. And we were doing this planning over Zoom meetings.
Right.
Yeah. So that makes perfect sense to me. So people already own their laptops or their desktops or whatever have you at home. And so I can definitely understand exactly where you're coming from, Tom. People were getting used to having functions and having meetings and having conversations, not in person.
It was like uncommon as a whole, but not very uncommon because of the situation that everyone was in at the same exact time.
Forced to learn.
Exactly.
Forced to learn. Yeah, I love that. So this show really, what I was really wanting our viewers and our listeners to understand is how virtual events really can impact someone's organization. And when we come back in a few minutes, I want to talk about the different types of organizations and the different types of virtual events that people can have that I really feel like could benefit a ton of people. Because, our listeners, viewers could be businesses. They might be part of an association, like a trade association. They could be part of a chamber, from a membership perspective. They themselves might have virtual events or need to bring some type of awareness to a product. Because you can even have training or educational of virtual events to your current clients. There's all types of virtual events. Most people associate virtual events automatically, it seems like, with nonprofits, but you literally can have educational virtual events with prospective clients or current clients.
Not just fundraisers.
Exactly. Not just nonprofits to raise funds. Really, what does it really take to start mapping out the rundown of the virtual event?
Sure. Usually what we end up doing, Haley and I have a big part in working on this, but when we get with the client and talk to them originally about, the plan for what's their ultimate goal, what are you trying to achieve? Once we get kind of.
So is it education, or is it membership satisfaction, or is it fundraising? Yeah, Haley, exactly. So fundraising, which, in the nonprofit world, that's
of course
very, very important.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So once we have that pretty much laid out, figuring out what their final goal is, kind of work backwards. Okay, so how are we going to get people there? So when we create this rundown, and Haley can speak to this too, but when we kind of build this rundown, we build a basic foundation of how we're going to start it, how like our middle ground, and then how we're going to bring it down and kind of finish out the night with that final hard ask, and making sure people
in a fundraiser perspective.
In a fundraiser perspective. No, in like an awards scenario, for
You
example.
build up to like the most important awards,
yep.
which would basically really coincide with a live event. Like you wouldn't have the most
Exactly.
important, biggest award of the night up front, and people
Right,
start
right.
ducking out, right? So,
Right.
yeah, it's
You
a
want
build up.
you want to build them up to keep them throughout the event, and ultimately kind of keep them engaged as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, getting the proper interviews with people that either are influential in the community, with the actual organization, or even just folks that could sponsor like people outside of the normal environment to just help promote it, leverage that their audience base.
Yeah, no, I love that. Haley, Tom, I like where Tom was going just now with the different types of content in there, right? But as you know, because you've been the one working a lot with some of our virtual events client, a ton. So a lot's probably even an understatement.
A little bit.
You came to me today and says, "Man, this is taking like hours a day." Just per client. And
absolutely.
so at this point, because we're getting ready to host like 2 in a row, back to back, Haley, the different types of content, walk me through from the rundown and the planning, like Tom was talking to, walk me through some of the logistical things. Like once we get the rundown, then we have to start scripting it. And scripting is not easy.
No.
Because we have to get into, no, Haley says no. That was the most humbled no that I've ever heard in my life, right? No, you're right. You're right, Matt. It's not easy at all. So we have to script it because we have to get inside the recipient, the viewer's mind, and try to figure out how they're going to be receiving the content. But not only are that, we can't let them be bored.
Right.
So we're having to take them from like a speaker, like the host, like someone that's influential in that area, that industry, or that geographic area, or something like that. So Haley, what are we doing? We're having going from things like host to speaker.
Yeah, a big part of our rundown outline is choosing the host and the MC. Usually we try to choose a host with the client that's someone in their industry, in their business.
Recognizable.
Right.
Yeah.
And with that comes the MC, and usually that name we want to be more recognizable in the community.
Okay.
Someone who's a little more influential, just to give the industry and the business credibility.
And we can even leverage their following
Right.
if we choose that properly.
Yeah. And then from there, choosing our speakers and who we're interviewing, just going through the event, we try to choose people involved in the business and also people who have been a part of it and can give testimonials.
Okay, so the actual representatives of the organization, and then we'll bounce to people who might be benefiting from
Right.
the organizational. So like a testimonial or someone who might be receiving or consuming those goods or services at that moment in time. So like a nonprofit, one of the most recent nonprofits, I noticed how you kind of set that up was you went from, I guess the MC kind of came in, introduced, and then they brought like the executive director into play. And then from the executive director, they kind of had some back and forth about what the event was going to be that day or that night. And then from there, I think we might have had some pre-recorded assets when it came to some participants, people who were being benefited from that nonprofit. And then I think you took it to like video to keep that engagement going.
Right. We try to keep some of the video interesting, just to keep people engaged and keep them on track with where the event's going. We try not to keep the event, like Tom was saying earlier, too long either, because we don't want to lose people towards the end of it. But yeah, typically when going through our outline, we have the MC and the host are who we're always going to come back to. Between
So we keep
takes.
circling back to that.
So they are the familiar faces that people see throughout the night, which is similar to a live event. And then we just go through speakers and our interviews and testimonials. Sometimes we do promotional videos describing more about what the organization is like or what the business is like, just to keep people engaged.
I like that. And engaged is key, right? That's the key, because we're wanting people to hear the entire thing and be engaged with it from start to finish. I know on some of the ones that I've been able to participate in with you guys in mapping out, I know that a lot of times we like the kind of the roller coaster effect where we're kind of starting off the event with a little bit of excitement, right? So we have some good music beds, really a good MC that's kind of electric and that really can charge up the audience, if you will. Same thing with live event, right? I mean, you don't want to bring somebody out boring right on stage up front, right? So, and then from there we kind of build up the education, like why are you listening? And then we build it up, and then we have, like, in the case of a nonprofit, since that's what we're talking about right now, in the case of a nonprofit, we might have a soft ask, right? And so from a soft ask, and so that's kind of the peak on the early peak. And then we start educating, and now we're starting to hear people that's participating. And so now the emotions are high. So we got in the soft ask. Now we're starting to get really emotional into what that nonprofit offers. And then from there, we're able to then take it into kind of, okay, we'll let somebody's emotions go down, because then we start talking about how we do it, what makes us different, what makes our nonprofit special. And then we'll start building that emotion back up, because we'll go back to that, and we'll use different types of assets. Like you're talking about, Haley, we'll go from speaker to educational speaker to video to testimonial, back to speaker, back to educational. And it's kind of like this just flow of content. I feel like that works really, really well. It seems like the engagement that we've been able to receive is pretty good. I mean, do you guys feel that way as well?
Absolutely. We have a formula down to it now that we work through. It
took a while. It took a while. But the good news is it seems like from the very first one that we've done, of course, we learned some stuff on that first one, that's where the debrief comes into play. I know you have to debrief immediately following the event while everything is fresh on everybody's mind, and you go ahead and start mapping out the next one.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, without the debrief, you don't know what went well and what didn't, really. Because I mean, more importantly of it going well is what didn't go well. Because there's always going to be those speed bumps, and having that debrief is super, super important.
Yeah. So one of the questions that I have is, and I know this is a question that has been asked of us, all three of us, many times, is, are we going to do it? Is the virtual event truly live, right? Like, go to a stage or building or an office space or a space or whatever. We hold them here in our studio a lot of the times. Is it live, or is it a combination between live and recorded, or is it all recorded assets made it look like live, right? And so what have we found? Well, Haley, what was your opinion? What have we found that's kind of a secret sauce in that?
So we've luckily been able to host virtual events in many different formats. We've done virtual events that are completely live, where we've had them in our studio and we've live streamed it that night, and whatever the hosts and the MC and all the speakers are saying is what they're saying.
That's what they're saying, right?
That's what you get.
You don't get a do-over.
No.
Yeah, you don't get a do-over.
Yeah. And we've also done some that are a combination, where we have some pre-recorded assets and we have some portions that are live. And we've also had some that are completely pre-recorded.
Yeah.
It's kind of just dependent on how the clients feel and how comfortable they feel in front of a camera. But we found that pre-recording gives us more control over the event and what we're going to say. But obviously we still want to make it feel live.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And Tom, in that case, even when we're doing just all pre-recorded assets, we're still making it feel very much all live.
Right. So as we're going through, that's where the scripting comes into play. That's super important, is to make sure when we are recording it, it does sound like we are live. Obviously, in some cases, we know it's not. If it's 7, 8 o'clock at night when this thing is actually running and we have videos that are in the daytime, it's kind of obvious. However, it still works to a live feel, because it's live to the audience. It's live in that moment. And the results that we are able to yield from it is live. I mean, we're not faking anything. It is still legitimately live. And I think people get that, and I think people appreciate it.
I do too. I do too. There is, when it is live, or at least even if it's a combo of live to recorded, when you have people that are live, you're right. I mean, what they say is what they say, and there's no taking that back, or there's no redo, there's no do-over.
Right.
What I do like about it, just talking about advantages and disadvantages, if it was up to me, we would just do it all pre-recorded just because we have control over every aspect and we can watch it and redo it and watch it, redo it. But some of the things this live, it really does kind of give you, it's like kind of a little bit of a rise, if you will.
Excitement for the night. Yeah.
It just seems like a really big rush when you're able to do it live, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
I mean, the ones that we've done, even though we're not in front of the camera, behind the camera, it's still been like, that was cool. Like, I'm super excited. I'm super stoked up.
And it's nerve wracking.
Yeah.
It is. That's part of that rush.
Everybody gets excited too, because it's like, they know it's live. Whatever is about to happen is going to happen. And so,
yeah,
it's fun.
Haley, you and I were talking right before the show started, and we were talking about how cool it was to where now you have an unlimited reach, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have unlimited capacity.
Right.
Where in a live event, like, how many people can this sit? Can this venue sit? Or how many tickets can you sell? Can people that's interested in this content get there from wherever they are? Right. And so we don't have those limitations when you're talking about a virtual event. To me, it just seems like a much better situation.
Right. Because you can watch from the leisure of your own home, from your living room couch, your bedroom. You can be driving in the car if you want to, watching the event.
Right. Hopefully just listening to them.
Yeah.
Just riding.
Yeah.
But it allows people to watch it on their own time and just be in the comfort
of your own home. And you could even be on vacation.
Right.
I mean, what happens if you're on vacation and you want to go to this event?
Right.
The sponsors, not all sponsors could be present, but now you can. Mm-hmm. All sponsors can be present. So I think it's really cool. Well, I love it.
They had a big conference this past year that, I've been wanting to go to for a long, long time. One of the big nationwide, worldwide creative conference.
It used to be held at like Las Vegas or something, right?
And this year
it was virtual.
It was all virtual, and all you had to do is register. Yeah. And we had the opportunity to attend some of these awesome, speakers and workshops and stuff that normally we wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, so that's an educational event. That's a conference educational event. And we normally wouldn't been able to send everybody because, because hotel rooms, flights, food,
cost of the
ticket. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars.
In multiple days, our entire company could, on your time, be able to go in, log in, and watch something that is benefiting us tremendously.
And the cool thing about a conference doing it virtually is not everybody's interested in everything.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right? Because what you like and what your job is responsible for is very different from yours. I mean, the strategy portion's the same, right? Because you're taking a client and you have this goal, but the difference between the strategy and the content and setting it up, or the landing pages and the social media ads and the digital footprint and all that is so much different than the video and photography content. I mean, it's part of the same strategy, but you need to be going to one set of education while you're going to a different. And if we have 30 or 40 people and they're all going to different ones or, similar ones, not everybody's going to the same one, then at a physical conference, you're wasting a lot of time. Whereas someone could actually be doing something else and then saying, okay, from 2 to 4, that's the education piece I need. Mm-hmm. So I love that. Talk to me, guys, about let's say just a private organization, because there's people out going, I don't know how virtual events apply to me. Mm-hmm. And so talk to me about, a private organization, one like Splash Omni Media, for instance, who offer services, right? So we do everything marketing and advertising. We, from strategy, building and creation, all the way down to execution of the tactics, right? All the way over to, say, a product type of organization, like a manufacturer or a distributor. I mean, and they're probably going, how does a virtual event apply to me? And I see it as you have both prospective clients and you have current clients. Mm-hmm. And so you literally could do education for them. You could do a product launch. Mm-hmm. You could do how to type of education demonstrations.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's just let's just take a manufacturer, for example. I feel like it's hard to reach all of your clients, especially in today's, society, environment, whatever you want to call it, Everybody's locked down. They're afraid to travel. Their companies aren't traveling. And now if a manufacturer could do a short live event talking about their new products or a sales piece, even turn it into a sales piece. I mean, at the end of the day, they want to reach as many people as they can. Even you might have an opportunity now to reach people that, quite frankly, you wouldn't be able to before.
I love that. I love that because, and I don't want any of our listeners, our viewers, to miss that point, Tom, because what you were just saying, use it as a sales piece, because it doesn't go away. Once you've done it, you actually have the recorded asset. Even if it was a live event, it had to go live on some type of digital piece to begin with, right? So it's been now recorded, and now your sales team could use that for years in the future.
What's the stat? How many people are watching video today?
Oh, yeah. It's out of 7 billion people in the world, over 4 billion videos just on YouTube alone is being watched.
So there you
every
go.
day. Every day.
It's just another form, obviously, of video.
Right. That's what it is. And so it's a company asset that you would then be able to have for years until you're ready to change it, right? A new product or a new way of doing that product or service. But you could do it to your existing. You could do it for acquisition of new prospective clients. You could use a virtual event for all types of things, in my opinion.
Well, there's some of these businesses that the companies are all over the country that you could do a virtual event for an internal purposes. Like you said, whether training or maybe just instead of not being able to get together like you normally would, but maybe getting all the executive team together to do a virtual event for the entire company, talking about how cool it is to work for them. I don't know, something to that effect.
How about marketing the event? And so people are like, oh, okay, I'm now understanding about the event. So if listeners and viewers, the folks that have decided, okay, I'm buying in, I'm understanding exactly what you guys are saying about how the advantages of the virtual event.
Too,
right. Of course, they all are, right? But how do you market? How do we get people to actually come to it? And so obviously it's a little bit different for a nonprofit because you're trying to raise funds. You're trying to get a bunch of people, the current donors plus new donors. But then on the corporate events, the education pieces, you're trying to get prospective clients and so on and so forth. So the key there is what? We have to identify who we're trying to reach, no matter who it is, right? So if it's a donor, you already know the types of people. Obviously, it's not college students that's going to primarily donate to a nonprofit, right? So you know about average ages, you know about average income, you know about, wealth, you know about house values, geographic areas. And so talk to me a little bit about, say, a buyer persona type of scenario. I'm just going to call them buyer persona. It could be a donor persona. It could be a, whatever, but just a consumer that's going to look at that. Like what all types of things you're looking at that, Haley, when you're looking at those types of things?
As far as people we think that will be watching the events?
Well, you would want to watch the event. People you would say, hey, this is the perfect type of person that I would want to watch my event. So no matter if you're a chamber, you're wanting business owners that might see a benefit, right? And most chambers, not all, most chambers, as far as local municipal chambers, they're wanting more of that small to middle-sized business owners. So that would be a perfect buyer persona for them, right? Whereas a nonprofit would want like what? What type of person? I guess we just said it a minute ago. Probably average age of, what would you say, 45 to 65 or something of that nature, I think is probably one of the most popular ones. And then, obviously you have not only age average, but you had house value, you have income levels, right? You have wealth levels. And so once we've been able to identify those, well, then we can identify how they shop, right? Are they online? Are they offline? Are they on Facebook or YouTube or whatever? But we got to get in front of them. So sometimes we send postcards.
Right.
I think you did a number of postcard mailers here recently.
Yeah, we've done mailers. We've done Facebook ads.
Social media ads, right? We've even done like a little bit of television and radio ads. Yeah. So really, we're just trying to reach people to attract them. I think we've done some press releases. Yeah. Actually, I think you're sending one press release out Monday, aren't you? Yeah. So press releases to the local press and in some cases to the national press. So there's all types of ways to reach that buyer persona.
Well, it's super important too to remember that you can't expect people just to stumble on this too. We have to reach out multiple weeks in advance and after the event too, because like we were just talking about, it's there to be rewatched. And another good thing about virtual event, they can rewatch it.
Yeah, that's true.
As many times as they want.
We can send it in an email.
If somebody missed it, we can resend it out. But that's where a lot of the success is going to come from too, is before and after.
Right. Our goal is to get people to register for the event, even if it's free, just so we are making sure that people are actually watching the event and attending the event and watching online.
And then you're data mining. You're getting their email address so you can later communicate with them. So in a nonprofit, you're building your list, if you will, and then a secular business or a for-profit business, depending on, from services to manufacturing or products or whatever, you're building your contact list, I guess, in your database so you can communicate. Data building, that's a good point, Haley. It's like probably one of the most important things an organization could do, no matter what type of organization it is. Have more people to communicate your message to.
Right.
Right. And so that's super important.
And the earlier they sign up to, you can stay in contact with them, remind them about the event.
That's right. You can give them reminders.
And then following the next year.
Love it.
The next event.
Love it. But the key there in some of the things that we've talked about already in our show is we have to get the rundown, figure out what it is that we're trying to do. What's our goal? Is it a nonprofit we're trying to fundraise? Are we launching a product, or are we explaining and educating our clients? So once we figure that out, then we can script it and we can lay out the rundown, if you will. From the rundown, then we make sure that all the scripting is done and we have all the pieces of the puzzle together, right? So we're looking at who's involved, who is going to be speaking, who's educating. I know that once we get that down, then we can start building, of which you've done a lot of, Haley, I know, is building kind of the digital footprint. Are we taking them to a social media platform? Or are we taking them to a full website or to a landing page? But it needs to be all relevant, right, to them. There you might have sponsors and donors and board members and content and the speaker lineup and the agenda. You might have some video on why to view this event or attend this event. You could have like some past year type of stuff from the live event that you used to have, and now you're pivoting to the virtual event. It's just kind of a sales item. What were you saying?
We add our registration links.
The registration links.
If it's a nonprofit, we can add donation buttons.
Okay, donation buttons. Yeah, absolutely. So you got all kinds of stuff. You would have that on the digital footprint. From there, then you start marketing the event, right? You start using anything where your buyer persona might drive you to, right? And so once you decide on who it is that you're trying to reach, then you're going to take them to that digital footprint from there. So you start marketing the event. It might be social media ads, might be TV commercials, might be direct mail, might be all kinds of different things. A lot of nonprofits, what I know that you and I like to do, Haley, is make sure that, that their board members because their board members are volunteers that have a complete bias towards that nonprofit, that have some type of passion for it. And they all have some influence within their radius of people. And a lot of nonprofits think that their board members should just come there once a month and have a meeting and go. But when it comes to fundraising and virtual events, we really need nonprofits, board members and participants to step up and say, you know what, I'm going to reach out to so many people, on my list, and I'm going to commit to raising $5,000 each or $10,000 each or $2,000 each or $500 each. It doesn't matter, but we need some type of participation from those board members. But then you get that, and that's where the fundraising is. A lot of people, Haley, and you and I know this, right? Because I would say over the past 12 months, out of all of the nonprofits we did these virtual events on, we had one that didn't do good. Everybody else did really, really well. And the one thought and felt like the virtual event, that 45 minutes or to an hour, right? That is where all the fundraising was done. And that's a misnomer, right? Because it's not. That's the event. The fundraising is done leading up to and coming out of the event. And everybody else has understood that. So they've all gone out and gotten partners and sponsors and people like that to help do the virtual event. The virtual event is to convey a message.
Right.
Educate. Bring brand awareness. right? I mean, is there anything that I missed in any of that, Haley? Because I know that one did not do good, and 9 out of 10 has done very like exceedingly well, and one is not done well at all. And wasn't that about the main difference between them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there has to be build up to the event. You have, like you were saying about the board members, you have to get your people involved and create a momentum. If you're just having 1 or 2 people talk about the event, then you're not going to get your name out there, and you're not going to get the event out there. It's leveraging the event, getting people involved beforehand, and also, like you said, getting people watching the event afterwards, sending it out in email, putting it on Facebook or on your social media channels or on YouTube, and reminding people to watch the event if they couldn't attend the first live event the week before. It's just getting people involved and getting your message out there.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever that message is.
Consistent messaging.
So, Tom, I'm super excited about a couple of the events that we, I guess, are very near future events that we have. I know we're doing them all the time, but a couple that's coming up here really, really soon. There's one, and we don't like to have names because I don't want to give one, some press over another, because we could do a whole show over just all of the folks that has us helping them with their events, and I want to do that. I want to use their names. Go to Splash Omni Media's Facebook page, and you'll see a lot of the stuff that we're doing with the people we're doing it with, and support those nonprofits, because there's a lot of really good causes out there. That's why these nonprofits exist. You want to support the ones that you have some passion to, some that you have some history with, because the Cancer Society, for instance, there's a lot of people that's been extremely negatively affected by cancer, all types of cancer, right? And then there's homes where, like, you have homeless, and you have addiction homes, and you have things like human trafficking, and you have all types of just super good nonprofits, and they're great causes. But there's one coming up that we've never done anything with here that I'm super excited about. It's a camp, if you will, for kids, and one of the things that I got to go with you guys on this one, I don't get to go with you guys every time, but I got to go with you guys on that. And what you realize when you go on one of these planning sessions is how much research that we have to do up front, of how much we have to understand the emotion of where nonprofits help in order for us to build that rundown and that script up. Right. Mm-hmm. So when we first went out to that camp, that was pretty cool.
It was cool. I want to go.
Yeah.
I actually want to go to camp.
Yeah. Talk to me about kind of just getting there wherever there is, right? To all those nonprofits I was just speaking, or even a business, but let's just use the camp as an example. Talk to me about when we come on campus, what are we looking at? Walk me through that.
I think to start that, people just have to understand, we come along as a partner, but we're not an expert in their field.
Right.
We want to be as an expert to the best of our ability.
We want to be as educated as possible.
So with that, we come alongside those folks, and we kind of just have them break it down from ground up.
Start to finish.
What does a typical day look like? What are the types of people that you're trying to get? These folks, for example, they deal with kids all summer long. So what type of kids? Why?
Yeah, I remember we were on campus, Tom, you were asking, okay, so what time do they pull up?
Exactly.
Who's typically dropping them off? And then what's the sign in or the registration look like? And then what? Do they go to eat then, or do they go to their dorms? And then what happens day 2? What happens when they wake up? Right. What do they, and you walk, they literally verbally walked us through and physically walked us around the camp day by day of the activities that took place.
Cause it's not just a summer camp where they just have a free for all. They're playing. No, there's a lot of
curriculum based.
Exactly. And they have an agenda every day. So there's a lot of staff. There's a lot of people cooking and cleaning. And so there's a lot that goes into this. Right. And there's a dollar amount per kid. So for us to be able to go in and really get a clear understanding of what it truly takes to run this camp gives us that big picture. Okay, this is what we're really doing here for this virtual event. Now we can kind of be on the same page, if you will, with them and kind of get in with them. But I say that to say we still are a partner.
Yeah.
So we rely on them a lot as well. But we try to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
We take a lot of that heavy lifting and we take that on with their help.
I love that. So, if you're looking to possibly get the word out about a product, a service, membership satisfaction, if you're trying to get raise funds for nonprofits, hey, there's all types of organizations, from awards ceremonies to education to fundraising. There's all types of things you can do with a virtual event. If you're needing help with that, basically from the planning to the execution and everything in between, check us out. Happy to talk to you, Tom Haley, myself over at Splash Omni Media. But for today, thank you very much for joining us on The Brainstorm with Matt and Mike. And again, go to thebrainstormradio.com, subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel. This show, and we have shows every single week over the last year and a half. So it's a lot of shows on there, and check us out. If we can ever be of assistance to you, feel free to fill out a contact form right there on thebrainstormradio.com. Ask us your question, and we'll be happy to get back to you and answer it. Other than that, thank you very much for joining us today on The Brainstorm with Matt and Mike.